Shabbat Shalom. Today we're going to talk about the Messiah, so clearly existent and present in the texts of today. And we're talking about the way God provides for a way out of, like Israel was presented with a way out of Egypt, we are presented with a way out in situations where we need to run to God, but we have no idea how to leave the old situation. Today is the new month, the month of Adar, the Hebrew month. Same time, it is the Chinese New Year. If you're interested in it, it's good to know about all these years and New Year celebrations. Guoqingjie, I think it's in Chinese, and so that is what is going on at the moment. The new spring season is presenting itself in the country of China, I guess. Interesting to know, I think. Let's talk about the study and the text of today. And the first one is from Exodus chapter 21, verse 1 through 24, verse 18. I'm going to start reading from Exodus 24, verses 5 through 8. There we go. He, which is Moses, sent young men of the children of Israel who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of cattle to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. He took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do, and we will be obedient. And Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, look, this is the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you concerning all these words. There's some mistakes in the text, and I think I know why, but sorry for that. Look at this sentence, the blood of the covenant, because later on in the celebration of the new covenant, Messiah, Yeshua, called Jesus in English, is talking about blood in the covenant, and it has to do with the fact that we need to be confronted with the bloody thoughts and actions that we human beings are performing. That's for a fresh beginning. Israel is getting lessons, teaching from heaven, priceless, precious. And there are in this direct context that we're talking about, the plagues against Egypt. They observed these plagues, and these plagues showed God's power. And then there's also the deliverance, the liberation of Israel from Egypt, which showed God's care. Then there's also all the victories over the enemies of Israel, which showed and shows his protection. And there's the healing of family relationships, which show his restoration. Then there's also the giving of the law, the Torah, which shows his way of being just and honest. And it also gives a view into the heavenly places where all this is thought out and packed and wrapped, gift wrapped, to be given to Moses, who gave it to his people, who gave it to all of us also in this 21st century. We humans can come to total development in our lives for a full 100% if we have a relationship with God, with the Eternal One, with the God of Israel as he is presented in the Bible. He is our architect. He knows us through and through. A relationship between two or more people, like in a congregation, a spiritual environment, can only come to its fullest fruition and content and all the developments that it can go through if all these people have relationship with the God they say they worship. This needs to show in their conduct, in their behavior, they're behaving towards each other and stuff like that. What does that mean? Relationship with God. To have contact with the one that knows us, that we can trust, who liberates us, who helps us, who restores us, who gives us eternal life, who presents us with his power, his care, his protection, his restoration, his way of being just and fair and honest, and who gives us a view in the heavenly regions. That's what God does. That's what that relationship entails. A relationship with God only works if you allow him to form and to recreate you, correct you, encourage you, and console you. And if you say, yes, that's what I want, be sure that there will be situations where you need to be comforted. And the question then is, will you allow him to do that? Situations where you need to be consoled and comforted, will you allow him in your pain? Situations where correction needs to be taken place in your life, will you allow him to change, to show the things to you, to me, that we need to change and that we perhaps don't want to change? What is it that a human being needs, which he can produce himself, herself, in order to come into contact with her or his heavenly dad, to have a relationship with him? What that is, in Hebrew, is called kavanah. Kavanah. It's a combination of certain ingredients like faith in God, like trusting him in situations where we think we need to do something because God might miss the moment or something like that. No, we need to trust him, like obedience toward him, and servitude, serving him. So this is what we need to have, this kavanah, but we need something else as well, because there is a disconnection between heaven and earth, created by ourselves, and how to get in touch with heaven again. Can we do it ourselves? Can we build that gap, build a bridge or something like that? The answer is no. So we need a go-between. We need somebody, a broker, shall I call him. We need a heavenly broker, which is a very known Jewish principle, to have a broker. Somebody who really does the things for you that are difficult, or I would say impossible. Somebody who gives his life for you. Well, this is really asking much. To have us come to our destination. Somebody who can really help you restore the very disturbed relationship with God. The combination of all this is called Messiah. He gave his life, which is already described by our Jewish prophets in the Jewish Bible. He would sacrifice his life. It's a sacrifice, and it sounds like that sacrifice is the same as what the animal sacrifices were in the time of Moses. And it looks like when we say he gave the sacrifice, that it's sort of a multiplied sacrifice like the animal sacrifices and then more or something. And yes, it is a sacrifice. It's a unique sacrifice that couldn't be done by anybody on earth, an only person, an only earthly person. So yes, he would give his life, which is a sacrifice that is unknown until then, because no human sacrifices were demanded from the God of Israel. Animal sacrifices, yes. And so there is the word sacrifice, which is the similarity, but there are big differences between this sacrifice of the Messiah with the sacrifices making use of animals. So there are differences. The texts of today talk about blood. And I already said that blood is at least a sign of the cruelty of human beings. And we are confronted with that cruelty. But the blood of the animals is described as necessary in Leviticus chapter 17 verse 11 for another reason, forgiveness and to heal relationship. I'll read it to you in now. It's coming on the screen. Leviticus 17:11. The life of the flesh of animals, but also of human beings, is in the blood. I, says God, have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it's the blood that makes atonement by reason of the life that's in it, and that is evaporating at the moment that the animal is killed, according to Leviticus 17:11. Now look at that, and you realize that without the spilling of blood, shall I say, there is no forgiveness, which is confirmed in the letter to the Hebrews in the New Testament, in chapter 9, verse 22. Many more places, but this is one of them. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 22 comes on the screen now, and we read, according to Torah, in accordance to the law, nearly everything is cleansed with blood, and apart from shedding of blood, there is no remission. Apart from shedding of blood, there is no remission. The New Testament confirms Leviticus 17:11. Blood needs to be there. Now let me say this, and don't be frightened or something else that I'm saying now, but in the case of Messiah Yeshua, there was no blood in the way it's described in the animal sacrifices. Bear with me. Animal sacrifices, you need the artery in the neck. There needs to be an altar. There needs to be the temple. First the tent in the desert, later on the temple in Jerusalem. With Messiah Yeshua, Jesus in English, with Messiah Yeshua, there is no artery in the neck that was cut. There was no altar on which his sacrifice took place, and it was not in the temple. Yet the blood is necessary. Without blood, no remission. Conclusion so far, the sacrifice of Messiah has as its basis the animal sacrifices. There's where the blood takes place. There is a scene described in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 22 verse 20, where he calls the cup the new covenant. The cup is the new covenant. The verb is means something like represents, but that's besides the point at the moment. So we read Luke 22 verse 20. It comes on the screen, and I'll read it to you. Likewise, Yeshua, in his Pesach celebration, after the meal, after supper, which people who celebrate Pesach know what this means. There is first the ritual meal in the beginning, then there is the supper, and then there is the continuation of the ritual meal. And in the beginning of that, there is the third cup, the cup of being salvation, shall I call it. And that cup Yeshua took, and he says, this cup is the cup we call the new covenant. In my blood, by my blood. Now, I know what I'm saying when I read these words, in my blood or by my blood, which is poured out for you. What does that mean, by my blood? Because Yeshua has not been cut as an animal. He has not been on any altar. On the other hand, in confirmation, the animals have not been crucified on a cross. So there is big difference, and yet there is similarity. Sacrifice is the word. And Yeshua is talking about in other words, his blood. What is that? What does that mean, his blood? I think that he talks about the fact that the life in him, carried by his blood, is one aspect of his words, my blood. because his life will be taken from him. On the other hand, in addition to that, his blood is the blood of the animals. You could say, no, well, that's not his blood, that's the blood of the animals. Yes, but the blood of the animals is his blood. The Bible is his word. The creation is his. He is the creator. So he can say it's all his. This cup is the covenant, the new covenant, in my blood. My description of how the sacrifice needs to take place, whereby remission of sins takes place. You might say, so his sacrifice didn't do anything. Yes, it did. Yes, it did, because now it's the Messiah who does things for a once and for all situation instead of the yearly returning sacrifices. But this is the situation. It's the basis of the animal sacrifices that color and give meaning to the addition of meaning to the sacrifice of Yeshua. The whole Bible is the whole gospel is a very Jewish situation. So the blood, the sacrifice, is a sign for the one who sacrifices with an animal, that he realizes, 1, there is no way back, 2, this is the cost of serious transgressions, 3, these are the costs of new life. The sacrifice is also a sign for the Lord, that it's a sacrifice. If we accept this sacrifice of Yeshua, who goes back to the animal blood, but his sacrifice adds the bridging of the gap between heaven and earth. The blood of sacrifices of animals was the forgiveness of sins. That now the one who does this and who accepts and realizes that this sacrifice of Yeshua is unique and special and precious and a necessary condition, then you also know that the Eternal One will see that, and he will know that you know that there is no way back, that he will see that you realize what the cost is of serious transgressions and what the costs are of new life. All this is encapsulated in the short sentence in the Torah, in the law, in Exodus, chapter 24, verse 8, which we already read, which I will read again now. Moses took the blood, it's on the screen, Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "Look, this is the blood of the covenant, which the Lord has made with you concerning all these words." So we're not talking about it, we're talking about a very important text, a very deep, profound text. Not a text for free people, it's a text of a legal document for people who realize that there is a court session against us, a judicial situation, the day of judgment kind of situation. People who need remission of sins, atonement, and restoration of relationship with God. People who need to be freed from all the things, all the hang-ups, all the gaps in ourselves. And this is basis for this restoration and healing. So this is what this is. This is the only way of learning how to behave in order to be approved by the Lord. This is what happens when you realize also what happens when you don't do it well. The law is harsh, and only to show and to warn that we need to behave and shape up. God is lovable. He is very loving to us. He keeps us sharp and are on the edge. In the text of this week, the first covenant of Moses with Israel is made, a very solemn moment. God relates himself to Israel, and the Israel relates itself to the Eternal One. I need to silence something here. This is the situation. Every strength, every comfort which we perhaps received in different ways in olden days, we now receive from out of the hands of the Lord. All the time which we spent to business which kept our attention away from God, we now devote to Him. Not all the moments of our day, but only the moments where where our attention was kept and caught into directions away from the Lord, we now devote to Him. And so that's it for the moment. Let's go to the second Torah text, because it's a new month, and because it's also a special Shabbat Mishpatim. We will also read an extra edition of text, Shekalim. It's Parshat Mishpatim, but it's also Shabbat Shekalim, which has to do with this text, which I read in Exodus 30, verse 11 through 13 on the screen. The Lord spoke to Moses, when you take a census of the children of Israel, according to those who are numbered among them, then each man shall give a ransom for his soul to the Lord. I'll explain shortly when I read the text, when I have read the text. When you number them, that there be no plague among them when you number them. They shall give this, everyone who passes over to those who are numbered, half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel is 20 gerah. Half a shekel for an offering to the Lord. The simple meaning of this thing is that people, whoever you are, we need to carry our own responsibility. The consequences of what we do is in our own hands, and so we have to pay out of our own responsibility to God. And if we have done damage to other people, then we confess that. You cannot push that away and push it to someone else. You need to do this in a very conscious way. Find out the issues in your life, those issues that you are doing yourself and where you are responsible yourself. Talk about them to the Lord in a very conscious way, and then ask for this word kavanah, this Hebrew word kavanah, this combination of faith and trust, of obedience and serving Him. That also comes in the picture when we see the text of the Haftarah, which is the second of the three texts we read each Shabbat. Prophets, in this case, the 2 Kings, chapter 12, verse 1 through 3. I'm going to read it on the screen. In the 7th year of King Jehu, Jehoash began to reign. And he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Tzivia, meaning deer, of Beersheba, a small deer. Jehoash did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord all his days, in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. So Israel is getting and receiving lessons from heaven which are priceless, precious. Now comes also the application in the practice of life, in reality. Contact between people is depending on how they see themselves, how they judge themselves. How we judge ourselves is of incredible importance and impact on how we will behave to other people. In other words, if we think we're doing everything right, and if somebody talks to us and says you're doing it not right, and we feel attacked and stuff like that, we will behave in different ways than when we are okay. We feel okay in our skin, in our body, and people say something to us in a judgmental way, and if it's right, then we take it, and if it's not right, then they didn't have the right to say it, and we just go our way. So looking at ourselves has to do with looking to the world. One of the points is we need to be willing and able to be critical to ourselves in a sound way. Don't criticize yourself totally kaput and sick and stuff like that. Be critical. There is a risk of looking at yourself and not seeing the right things. We might be blind. We might have blind spots. We might feel that there's nothing we do well. Oh, I can't do anything well, like that. And we can have false, fake feelings of guilt. So to be honest is to have eye for your own mistakes. Also even to see that you might be in a role of being victim. And you might be a victim. But now the choice comes into your life from a certain point, being a victim, if you really are a victim, that you choose, shall I be that victim and continue to be the victim? Even if the one who did this to me will never say sorry, will I always be in shackles and be bound because I choose to stay in the role of victim? Or will I step out and use the way out, the escape route out of this bondage? So there is this being honest to yourself and see all these factors in our lives. The second factor is to be able to have empathy and to be able to feel what another person feels in terms of not only that, oh, I know what you're feeling because I'm clairvoyant or something. That I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about knowing what will happen in the other person, depending on what we say and how we behave. What will our words do? What impact will our words, our frowning, our cutting feelings in a bad way do to the other person? Are we in touch with that, or are we saying, well, I'm too busy for that kind of stuff? See the result of what you say and what you do. Being honest, having eye for the feelings of the other person. Also there, it's very important to do these things, because this describes our character. This describes our being ready to be, call it child of God, or call it the picture that God is creating in His Word to be approved by Him. Are we able to listen to the other person in such a way, like in a democracy, that compromising is a good thing when it comes to the government of a country? One party can fight for certain principles, another party can fight for the opposite. They will have to come to compromise in order to not become a dictate. How do you call it in English? Somebody who has total power and is the one and only leader in the country. The word skips my mind at the moment. So there. Then the third point is criticism of someone else. Are we able to open ourselves for criticism, and are we able to change things in our lives? Do we have an ear for what the other person is saying? Or are we insecure? Do we feel like what another person says, if it's not totally confirming what we're doing, it's like we are being attacked personally? You need to be aware of these things. Are we so insecure? Do we have so much pain that we'll always see ourselves in this victim role? The fourth thing is in combination with this coin that we spoke about, this second Torah text, where this shekel was given, half a shekel. Carry your own responsibility. So these are 4 items in our lives that we have to deal with, and that we will see also taking place in the lives of people that are blind for these things. If we dare to be honest, we will be able to handle criticism, judgment, because judgment will not be an attack, or we are strong enough to have resistance against it. Dictator, I was looking for that word, I think. It's so easy, man. Okay, anyway, sorry for that. Criticism is not a threat. It will be an upbuilding if it's okay, and also if we are not in agreement, but we say, hey, this is what the other person is seeing. I hope I will be open to this other person as I hope that he or she will be open to what I'm saying. That's how it goes. How will the kings of Israel have seen themselves? Because I read with this Jehoash person in 2 Kings chapter 12, but there are also very bad kings, evil kings. Well, the good ones will see themselves as good and their points to improve. The bad ones will see themselves as good as well, which is freaky. Freaky because when people see themselves as good while they're blind for their own mistakes, and their mistakes are heavy, it's not so good. King Jehoash in Jerusalem was just, but for instance, see King Ahaz, as you see in English, Ahaz, in 2 Kings chapter 16, verse 2 and 3, coming on the screen right now. I read, 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he didn't do that which was right in the eyes of the Lord his God, like David his father. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, yes, and made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the nations, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. So there is the text in chapter 2. Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old. I'm struggling to see if I have the right text. Bear with me, please. This is Hezekiah is chapter 18, verse 1 through 6. So I already started to read that, because there is a king that is doing the right thing. So we go to 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 1 through 6. Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that David, his father. David was not his father, but this is how the word father in Hebrew is used. You need to get used to it when you come to God being called father, the father of Yeshua. He did that what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that David, his father, had done. He removed the high places, he broke the pillars, cut down the Asherah, he broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For in those days the children of Israel burnt incense to it, instead of using it in the way it was meant to be. And he called it Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor among them that were before him. For he joined with the Lord, he didn't depart from following him, but kept his commandments, which the Lord commanded Moses. So this is Hezekiah. And then there is Manasseh. In 2 Kings 21 verse 5. Just compare them and listen to the descriptions. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hephzibah. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Never mind his own sight, the eyes of the Lord said no, after the abominations of the nations whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again these high places which Hezekiah, Chizkiyahu, his father, had destroyed. And he reared up all the altars for Baal, and he made an Asherah, and did Ahab king of Israel, and worshipped all the army of the sky, and served them. He built altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Torah said, I will put my name in Jerusalem. He built altars for all the army of the sky in the two courts of the house of the Lord, and see his son Ammon. Ammon in 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 18 through 21. Manasseh slept with his fathers, so he died. It's a way of saying that. And was buried in the garden of his own house in the garden of Uzzah. And Ammon, his son, reigned in his place. Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Meshulemet, the daughter of Charuz of Yotba. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, as Manasseh his father also did. How would his son be? We'll read that in a moment. He walked in all the way that his father walked in, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them. Finally, we come to the son, the young guy, King Josiah, Yoshiyahu, in 2 Kings 22, first 2 verses. I read. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 38 years old, guy. He reigned 31 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Yedidah, beloved, the daughter of Adaiah of Botkat. He did that which was right in the eyes of God, and walked in all the way of David his father, and did not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. Were the bad kings evil in their own eyes? Answer is no, and that's creepy. That's freaky. Can you fool yourself? Answer is yes. So how can you be held responsible? How can you protect yourself against that? Well, for one, you could confirm this blindness, these blind spots situation, by reading Psalms 19. In it you will find a verse, I think it's around 12, that talks about the fact that David, who is the author of the psalm, feels that he's blind to a certain area in his life, and he might slide away, slippery slope, and when it goes slow enough, you are blind to it. Free me, liberate me, deliver me from that kind of making mistakes. I'm not even aware of it. So how can you protect yourself? How can you bear responsibility? By saying to yourself, I need to feel the responsibility also for that, and get myself out of the I couldn't help it situation, by finding the escape way, which will get you out of this vicious circle, by not spoiling yourself when you surround yourself with people who say yes to you all the time and bow to you, by not taking yourself so serious all the time. The third text comes from the Berit Chadashah, the New Testament, and it's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 6 through 13, in which it's not read here in this text. Paul also talks about the people of Israel traveling from Egypt to the Promised Land, and there's a rock that travels with them, which is the Messiah. It's a Messianic study today. I read 1 Corinthians 10, 6 through 13. These things that we read about in the text that we read today are our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they did. Not they, all of them, but they when we generalize. So don't be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did and committed. In one day 23,000 fell with the situation with Baal, with Biliam. Neither let us test the Lord, as some of them did and perished by the serpents. Neither grumble, as some of them also grumbled and perished by the destroyer. All these things happened to them by way of example to us, and they were written for our admonition, on whom the ends of the ages have come. Therefore let him who thinks he stands be careful that he doesn't fall. No temptation has taken you except what is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above what you're able to bear, but will with the temptation also make the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. Very important text. We read in the text in Exodus 23 verse 20, it's a many verses study today. We read in the text the words, I will read it again, comes on the screen. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you by the way and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. There's an angel that goes with Israel, I think also with us today, who keeps us focused on the way we need to go. And the word for angel in the Hebrew is malach, which can also mean somebody who brings a tiding, a news agent. And you could think about Moses as one of those news agents. But the description, or is it an angel? Well, the descriptions, they give the picture of someone else than only a human being. Because the person that is described has the power to forgive. But he doesn't, no, he will not be able to forgive. I'm sorry, he will not be able to forgive, but he will be able to say what you need to do, perhaps with a soft voice that you need to learn to hear. And the name of God is in him. He has the power to forgive, but he will not forgive, because this person, I think, this human, this existence is Messiah. Don't call him Jesus, don't call him Yeshua, because this written in the time that his name was not revealed as such, and he was already there as the messenger, walking with the traveling people. So there's many ways in which God can present himself. And he could not forgive because he was on earth, and only forgiveness that is eternal forgiveness comes from heaven. There's difference in levels. So this person has the power to forgive, doesn't use that, and has the power to have the name of God in him, which is a very important statement. Read in verse 21 on the screen. Pay attention to him, listen to his voice, don't provoke him, for he will not pardon your disobedience. It doesn't say that he is not able to, but he doesn't. For my name is in him. So we're talking about someone who is always been with Israel. I take it that he still is, and he is with every traveler on his or her way to the promised situation of Adonai, of God. And not only Israel, because with Israel a mixed multitude traveled. So this door is always open to anybody who accepts the God of the Bible, the God of Israel. So there is another way of description in which God comes to Israel in a human form, in a human being, on earth, and Yeshua has been one of those manifestations. So Yeshua is not a Christian invention to make a person into God. It's a powerful way by God, of God, to organize a certain amount of situations. And first of all, to protect us on the way. Secondly, to bring us, accompany us to the place that God has designed. Number three, God will have animosity against our enemies, and God will oppress those who oppress us. Important. And in verse 23 it says, and I read it on the screen, my angel shall go before you and bring you into the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Canaanite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and I will cut them off. If that is then, it will be now. God is eternal, God is the same. The angel of the Lord leads you and leads me. Condition that you listen to him? No, read verse 22 and you see what the condition is. The condition is, if you listen, and on the screen, if you listen carefully to his messenger's voice and do all that I speak, You see this oneness of God. The messenger, listen to what he says, listen to his voice, and do all that I speak. God and the messenger are one. Words of Yeshua. I and the Father are one. The two are one. If you listen, not only listen, if you listen carefully to his voice and to all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. He says it. God says it. The two are one. This is not luxury to obey this angel. This is all or nothing. Only then come the benefits he wants to give us. To protect us on the way, to bring us to the destination that God has destined, to be an enemy to our enemies and an oppressor to our oppressors. And in all this battle, all this wrestling that the Bible shows, and in which Israel lived then and we live now, it seems like there is no way out. And we need all these words to comfort us. But there is a way out. It looks like we're stuck. There is no exit. We realize that sometimes we're making stupid mistakes. What to do? How do we escape? Not only stupid mistakes that we make, but stupid mistakes made toward us. And now, in this text in 1 Corinthians 10, it talks in verse 13 about the way to escape. The Lord shows, so you read in this New Testament text, that there is a window. It's perhaps a small window, and you have to climb through this small window in order to escape. People have done this when they were lined up to go with trains to the concentration camps. Family member of mine did this. Perhaps you will tear your clothes. Perhaps you need to jump down and fall down 1 meters out of the window before you hit the floor, before you hit bottom. But this is your way out. This is your exit. See it, find it, use it. It doesn't say God brings a nice ending. It says God gives you a way out. You need to walk it. You need to walk it. Yeah. Hebrew, the Greek word is ekbasis, meaning a way out. Ek, out, basis. The way out, the escape road. That's what it says. The covenant is cut, is made. Moses sprinkled the blood on the people. We broke that beautiful and that precious covenant, and God says, I have a new one. I have a new one in a new form. The basis is the same, but I have a new one. And Yeshua is taking a cup and says, see, this cup represents the new covenant, the renewal of this covenant with the animals. It's still there, it's still the blood of the animals, but it's my blood, says Yeshua. But hey, I'm the inventor of this all. Please make use of this covenant, because it's such a protecting and guiding and accompanying principle. So there's no bad ending. God gives that new chance, that new covenant, with the sacrifice of Yeshua, the angel, where God's name is in it, in him. And if you're locked up in the bondage of your life, God shows your way out, your unique personal way out. Not your suggestion, not the suggestions of other people. God will show it and you will know it. The way out. But we need to walk that way. We need to talk the talk and walk the walk. Alone? No, not alone. God will send an angel in front to protect and to guide us to the place that God has designed. So I'm saying again, Israel is receiving lessons from heaven which are priceless and precious. Plagues, the power. Liberation, his care. Victories, his protection. Healing of relationships, restoration. Giving of Torah, his way of being just, fair and honest. Plus a vision in the heavenly realm. Heavenly realm, very important to see that and to know that that is there. God gives us a way out So we need to have the courage and walk this way out. We need to see that Messiah is present in all these texts. It's real, it's there, in all these forms. God is very creative. Yeshua is the way. And we need to talk the way out. Yeshua is helping because he's not only the sacrifices and the blood that took care of the remission of sins, but he's also the way into the heavenly places, which is an incredible gap between that place and our earthly realm. He accompanies, he supports us in our walk of life, also on this way out that we perhaps choose today to start running on. Good running. I hope for you to do this and to take the courage to change things in your life that you cannot change on your own, but with the help of God you can. Pray for that. Shabbat Shalom. Have a good week.